You are listening to the Get Empowered Podcast, episode 5.
Stories shape narratives. Narratives create beliefs, and beliefs determine our reality. This is how our stories change lives. The Get Empowered Podcast is a product of Inclusivus, a globally centered, innovative organization committed to creating a platform for individuals who are changing lives and communities. Through the power of their voices and stories, they are navigating challenges, inspiring us, and creating change. The Get Empowered Podcast, fostering and building community through shared stories. Now let's join your host, Judith Registe.
Hello, as always, it is a pleasure and honor to be with you every week on the Get Empowered Podcast. This week, like every week, we bring you a special guest on a special subject addressed at an angle that is innovative, interesting, and a different perspective that you will only get here at the Get Empowered Podcast. This week is no different. We have our special guest, Kendra Blackett-Dibinga. We are talking about the growth and development of her yoga community in her yoga studio. This Get Empowered Podcast is the greatest thing I'm part of right now. Every week, I get to meet and get to know an extraordinary person. And this week is no different. Kendra is one of those exceptional human beings. When you see her in action and you meet her in person, you're reminded not only of what the goodness of humanity, but what we can do to make our world a better place. And she exemplifies that in so many ways, in her personality as a mother, in her stature as a wife, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as someone who cares about our health and our well-being. And you know, what's more important than your health? Nothing. In fact, nothing at all is more important than your health. Emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, physically. And to have a space in this busy, hectic life that we live, that we can go to actually work out and get connected with ourselves and with each other is the greatest gift. And to have that space to be a community of kind, loving people is not only an added bonus, but it's what sustains our health. And Kendra is building such a community of yogis, such a community of inclusion. And without any more commentary on my part, let's get started with the conversation this week. I hope you will enjoy and be inspired by her and what she's doing as much as I am. I am so thrilled to have you here today on our show. One of the reasons I wanted to have you on your show is that I've been in DC. I've been practicing yoga for 9 years, Bikram Yoga to be particular. Mm-hmm. And I came back to DC 4 years ago. I started practicing in London when I lived there. Mm-hmm. And I came back 4 years ago and you were teaching in one of those studios. Exactly. But at the time you didn't have a studio. And then I remember watching you go through the process of like building a studio. And I was like, I've just been so inspired by what you've accomplished, but also the motivation behind what was it that kind of like propelled you to making a decision to, you know, build a yoga studio? Did you see a need, or because you love fitness so much, you wanted to actually have your own space so you could work out every day?
Yeah, funny. Well, I started doing Bikram yoga after the birth of my second child. And so I took a class and I immediately fell in love. Yeah. And so I started going to a studio in the DC area, and I just fell in love. I loved it. The sweat, everything. I went with my sister and we went like 7 days straight, and it was just a beautiful time, a reawakening, because I had just, had given birth, my daughter. I just wanted to get back in the gym. I was a gym person. I used to be a personal trainer, by the way. Funny enough, you didn't know that probably, but I used to be a personal trainer, and so I was always in the gym, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I had no interest in going into the gym. So when I found the yoga, it was like, oh my God, it was like everything that I wanted. then one day I had this really great teacher, and she kind of just dropped a little seed and said, have you ever thought about teaching? And I said, yes, in a way. And then I just said, I think I could do this. I really loved the international development work I was doing. I'm originally from the Caribbean. And I focus a lot in my work on Africa, and it was lovely. I love that connection, that community. And every time I would go overseas, the one thing that, because I would always say to my husband, I kind of don't want to be in this work anymore because I had kids and I was traveling so much. But every time I go overseas, he always used to tell me, I know you're going to come back saying how much you love it and you want to stay. So, of course, every time I go overseas, I have this kind of rebirth and I'm like, oh, I love this work. I want to go overseas, but I realized what I was liking in that, what I was yearning for was a connection. And when I would go overseas, I would connect with people because I was going into the communities. I never really stayed in the office. I was always in the community, and I always used to just blend. And I just love that feeling, right? And so when I started doing the yoga, and I realized, I had that same feeling. I really liked being in that space where you had community, and that was kind of what. How I merged my two interests.
Right? That's the one thing I miss, but living in the field, doing international development work like you. But I was wondering, why was your studio? Because I've, explored and done classes in different studios in the DC area. Yes. But that sense of community, I never felt it. We say hello to each other in the locker room. People talk to each other. And I was like, this is a little weird, but you get used to it because when you go to the other studios, what happened is everyone is very busy. Everyone is too important to speak to one another in some way because we're very busy in DC. Exactly. But your studio was always like this. It was like a family. It's kind of how I feel like when I go there, like a community.
By design, we try to create a space like that. And then the first studio, I had all this little African art and furniture, and I had my little chairs, and I created a community space and people would just sit and talk. And it was something that I just said, I don't care if we don't have many events in this space. The fact of the matter is, after someone takes a class, they shouldn't want to run out. I wanted a networking zone. And in my business plan, I said each studio will have a networking zone. And it would have Wi-Fi and people will also be able to connect and just have meetings and all. And so that was my vision, to really have a space where people could connect. I think, in the yoga room, there's a sense of personal connection. You're connecting to your inner God, right? Your inner self, and focusing on yourself in the mirror is so key to kind of, self-realization in a way. But after you leave that room, it transmits from yourself to how you relate to others, right? You become a better person, and then you transmit that betterness, that goodness, that better personhood to other people. And you can't do this yoga and really do it and be kind of like, a nasty person. That nastiness sheds away, and it sheds away, without people even knowing it. They come in very, very hardened by life, by circumstances. I got divorced. I had cancer. Everybody has a story.
Yeah.
But, in that yoga room, in that space, you start to see it shed. You're no longer your story.
Yeah.
Your story is a part of, who you are, obviously, but you're not the story. You're bigger than the story. The story is informing a little bit of who you are. So I really like that. And I wanted that space where people could connect.
And you have sitting everywhere what you want to do. Because when you're done, if you've ever taken a Bikram yoga class, when you're done, you're really done. Yeah. So you kind of need to just relax. Yes. And I think the chairs you have around the studio really encourages people not only to relax, but to connect.
Yes.
Really connect.
That's it. Because you're not going to just sit there and someone's sitting and you're connecting already because you just went through a grueling experience in that heart room. You just worked yourself from inside out, right? and now it's you're going to share that. You have a bond now with that person that's sitting sitting next to you.
So this whole by design, sort of like building the community of fitness that you've built in the studio itself, the design of the studio, but also recognizing, you mentioned earlier, like the market of Black women. I mean, what I love about your studio, and we'll get to your hot Pilates classes soon, is that you have an inclusive studio, not just in terms of Black women and, you know, other group of who've not been, you know, targeted before. I noticed you also have classes in Spanish, you have classes in sign language. I mean, you know, you also, what I love about your studio, because no matter how much you work out as you age, your body shifts in different direction. Right. Also like body inclusion, right? Because I think yoga, for what it's worth, have always been like a thin body. The concept or the marketing of yoga up until recently has been a thin body framework.
That's it. So you come into our studios and you'll see everybody, every shape, every size, every color. And that's important to me. I never wanted a place where it was just one race of people, just one type of people. Because in fact, and that's exactly, I think, why Bikram Yoga draws me. You know, if you understand the Bikram Yoga philosophy, when Bikram was thinking about doing this yoga, he was saying there's no room for discrimination, which is why we don't do things like, you know, a lot of the advanced classes. We don't offer that because only a certain percentage of the population can really do some of those poses. The fact of the matter is everybody who comes into a Bikram Yoga class can access a part of every single posture, even if it's just a setup, right? And so you're not discriminating. You know, yes, someone might have a bad knee, someone might have big boobs, someone might have big, you know, butt cheeks or whatever. They are going to be able to do something. And that's empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, it
right?
is.
It's empowering. So I like that philosophy. There's no discrimination. No discrimination based on skin color, on how big or small you are, how, you know, whatever. There's none of that. Bikram would never do individual classes for people. Because he's like, what makes you think that you're, you know, that you would warrant an individual class? No, you go into the room with everybody. You know, everyone is the same in that room, you know? And I used to say in my class, like, when you look in that mirror and you realize how not perfect you are, and you cannot expect perfection from anybody else. And then having that burden of perfection come off of you, isn't that amazing? Like, I don't have to be perfect. Oh my God, I can breathe. Right?
Practicing Bikram Yoga, what I'm learning, doing these 26 same poses every single time, I feel like that's my life.
Yes.
There are some poses there are some poses I'm just like struggling. Struggling, but it's like I keep trying, and there are days, even with those poses that I struggle with, like I can make some progress. When I take your class, like when I did this morning, when you're like, there's no second, you know, like you gotta push it forward.
Right. At some point you gotta move beyond that.
You gotta move beyond that. I was like, oh my God.
Right, that's it.
But the point you're making about the imperfection, I think just the practice in itself, because these 26 poses, no matter how fit you are or not, it's always going to be the effort you put into trying to master those poses, but complete mastering of those poses is quite sort of like, it's the goal, but it's not like, you know, it's not an achievement you're going to have.
Right.
And I did not know.
And it's something that you'll be able to do for the rest of your life. Like, what else in this world can you do for the rest of your life? And so, and some days it's going to be up, some days it's going to be down. It's a metaphor for life. Another thing that we say is like, you know, how you show up anywhere. Like in terms of like how you do things, like how you do anything, right? It's how you do everything. So it's an opportunity in that room to really focus on yourself and to really like, you know, be just concerned about what's happening on the area of your mat, the surface area of your mat. And that's you. And I think what I've noticed, the hardest thing for people to do is to just focus on themselves.
It's true.
It's the hardest thing.
It's true.
I even had my daughter said to me the other day, I don't like looking at myself in the mirror. Now, granted, she's pre-puberty, right? So she's in that phase now where her body's changing. But I don't like to look at myself in the mirror. And now tell me, who doesn't like to look at themselves in the mirror? Like most people, right? Like there's something, you may be like the most beautiful person, but you'll find some imperfection, right? So I realized that it's the hardest thing, but once you're able to do that, you almost start to learn to love yourself, right? You learn to love yourself, and you learn to love all your imperfections as well.
I want to talk to you about briefly is about creating this space of community. Personally, what I found to be fascinating with your studio, with this community, is creating a space where we recognize the power within us. You recently introduced Hot Pilates, and your husband, who is a motivational speaker, and I think I go to suffer through his class just for that last couple minutes where he actually basically inspire you, like motivate you to tap into the power that you have, that you can conquer the world. Like, why did you guys decided to introduce Hot Pilates in your studio? When most Bikram studios, they tend to do Bikram itself, but you've actually balanced, which I found personally to be, I tried to do today Bikram, tomorrow Hot Pilates, to actually keep the core in shape, which itself another challenge. But what was the motivation?
Well, we were very committed not to be confusing to our members, right? So we believe 100% in Bikram yoga. We offer a therapeutic yoga. Bikram yoga is therapy. Okay, it's something that you can do for the rest of your life. It doesn't matter what condition you're in, you can do it. But the Hot Pilates was something where we noticed that a lot of people they don't have strong cores. And there's a lot of research out there that talks about the value of having your core strength and really working on that midsection area, and how it improves your posture, and how it improves so many other things. So we thought if we're going to offer something else, that it would be a complement to Bikram. It wouldn't be a replacement. So we didn't want to offer like a whole bunch of other yoga classes, like a vinyasa class and all these other classes, because we wanted to we believe in Bikram because it's done so much for me. It's done so much for my husband, my family, and everybody that I know who takes it. So that's kind of the core. But then we said, we have another, a group of people who maybe they need a softer introduction to the heart room also. So that was part of the motivation, like get people into the room, into the space, and realize that they can actually suffer through the heat, because that's one of the things. The heat is the issue, like not necessarily the postures per se. The heat, when people first get in there, they're like, oh my God, what am I doing in here? And your mind starts to like get jumpy, and you got these monkey brains, and you just want to run out. But in that Hot Pilates room, you are listening to music. You're not even allowed to really think about it being so hot. So it's like, it was kind of more a strategic move to kind of blend the two. So we hope that by the introduction of the Hot Pilates, that yes, those people who are like, I just want to work out, that they'll realize that they can do that, and then slowly introduce themselves into the yoga. Yoga is consistent, and the yoga, you always change with the yoga, right?
It makes sense.
So the yoga will always be kind of the core, the foundation of our business. But yeah, the Pilates is fun. It's a quick format. Also, it's something like when we introduced, we're going into summertime when people are trying to, go on the beach and, maybe wear less clothes and whatever. So, we thought, what a fun way to do it. And as you talk about being inclusive, it was also a way for my husband to get into the business in a more meaningful way, because he didn't really want to go to yoga teacher training. So I said, okay. But he went to the Pilates training because it was a shorter time and it was less time away from the family. So he did that, and now like he's fully into the business, right? Like before, he was more of my advisor, pillow talk advisor, right? But,
I like that pillow talk advisor.
But he now is part of the business. He's meeting the members. He's also hearing from them what they want. So like we are building the business together now.
Yeah, and we're loving his classes because it's motivation, that balance, that yoga. That's pulling that in. That's what that studio of, I call it my empowerment space.
That's it.
When I go in there.
That's it.
You've been very strategic. You not only have one studio, you have 3 studios. Like, what was the drive to go in? Was it? It's been 4 years. I've been so impressed to watch this growth.
I know it was so quick, it seems, but our first studio did very well, considering and I'm still working at Save the Children when I first started the first studio, and it got to a point where I'm like, I need to go do this full time, but I had a great opportunity kind of land in my lap. And then, it talks about, it's a story of creating good relationships and maintaining good relationships. Like my landlord and the construction manager for my landlord, Douglas Development, they just kind of brought me into this new development in Ivy City in DC. And they said, we want you to open up here. And they kind of helped open it. I was like, well, I wasn't really ready. It was less than 2 years in, but they said, we're going to help you. So we opened. And then at the same time, I was hearing that Tacoma Park wanted to sell. And I said, oh. So I said, you know what? Now's as good a time as any. So I ran over there and I talked to the owner and I said, I heard you wanted to sell. And he was really ready to sell. So I decided to go for it. The timing was right. I had the resources at the time, and so I just went for it. And so it's been a nail biting year because it was, 2016 was kind of like, oh my God, we had just acquired 2 new studios at the end of 2015. 2016 was trying to get the bearings and stuff, but we also have a great team of people who support the business and who help on different areas, so I can really focus on the strategy part of it. So this is not a story of me doing it on my own. Of course I have the vision for it of what I want, but I have a lot of people who kind of help bring that vision to fruition. Yeah.
And how do you bring these people in? So what's your strategy in terms of bringing people so that they feel ownership, not just your employees, because it's your vision?
Well,
how
first
do you
I need to trust the person. I only work with people I trust 100%.
That's 100%. The only thing to do, right?
And I really trust my gut instinct on people. I feel like I read people very well. But the part of it too is also giving people the space to do things that they do well. So like, Amber, my studio manager, she's very much like the social butterfly, and she does that very well. And so, having her at an Ivy City location is the most amazing thing. She does great there. And she's very organized. So she, the space always looks clean and it's all, so, and then I have Lee, who's like, she's worked at Bikram Studios before. She managed the one in Bethesda. And so when she came on board as kind of my social media man, she already knew. And it's weird, but when you put a vision out there, the people around you who come are going to help you. It's almost like you attract. It's that magnetic energy, because we just talk and listen. I gave her my business plan. We have weekly talks, and that's about it. Everything else that she posts, and I'm like, oh, that's great. It's almost like as if it's my voice, but it's because she knows me very well. And somehow she understands my vision, right? And so she's like, I don't have to micromanage. I don't like micromanaging, by the way, but I don't have to micromanage, which is great. It's like a burden off of my shoulders. And I love that because the people who are around me understand me and understand the vision, and then they're implementing it, and it's beautiful, right? I've given them the space to do that, and I love it.
Yeah, that's a clear testimony to your own vision. But actually, I read somewhere that talk about leadership. Choose well, right? Yes. When you choose well, everything else is kind of like high quality choices you make. Changes. The demographic in DC keeps changing. How is that going to impact your business? Yeah. And when I say change, I mean, like Ivy City is growing really, really fast. New construction is happening everywhere.
I think it's actually good for our business. It's a good thing. We were an early entrant into Ivy City. It was a very neglected area of the city for a long time. And so now with the new people, the new residents, I think we're just poised for growth. And I'm good. I'm fine with that. I'm really good with that. What I am very conscious of as we grow is that we maintain the diversity. And I think naturally we get that, right? Because we are getting people because of who we are.
That is true.
Right? People who would have never, ever tried that yoga before, right?
That is true.
But they're coming because of who we are. And that's lovely because they need it. They need it. As I said, this is therapy.
Yeah.
It is therapy. It is not a workout. Bikram yoga. It is therapy. And people actually say that I got my therapy in today. You know, it's 1 hour, 90 minutes, same thing. You get that sense of lightness and your brain like functions better. You make better decisions. When I was going to teacher training, people say, well, how did you do that and still maintain your full-time job? I said, you know what? I went to Bikram yoga and I do that yoga and I'm actually more effective in what I'm doing daily. I can do what I was doing in 8 hours in 4 hours.
I kid you not. You're right.
You become much more, you use your time well, you make better decisions, you're quick. And that's because you're not burdened by all this other stuff. Listen, the person who walks into the Bikram Yoga studio is not your normal person. It's not your person looking for a new workout. It's not your person who's just looking for that new fad. This person is looking to change their life fundamentally. So the older guys we're getting in there now, one guy comes in, he said, his wife was like, he can't move his head from right to left. He could not move his neck. He had no kind of rotation ability. Now he's like shaking his head all, and he's like so happy. But he got into that studio because he felt that it was going to help him, increase his quality of life. It's not a workout. It's something that you're doing fundamentally to change the course of your life. And intuitively when your body is telling you something, right? And so that person, we treat them with care and we treat them with respect because they're not coming. They could go to the doctor. They can go anywhere else and get a quick fix like a medicine or an antibiotic or a shot. But they are coming in here to do the work to regain control of their life.
Yeah, at a cellular level, right? At a deeper level.
Deep level. So these are people you don't just kind of discard. You have to treat them with care. And I noticed that, and it's like some Bikram used to say, junk bodies and screw loose brains. That's all of us.
That is true.
That's all of us, okay? We've all got issues. But the fact of the matter, you can regain control of your life just by focusing, And I'm we're not always successful because we get some people who, how they say we have this latent force, mm-hmm. like our body, like we are power. Our bodies are powerful. If we were to tap into even 50% of what we can do, it would be amazing, right? Yeah. Even if just 50%. And so I see people sometimes come into the yoga space and they'll come a couple days and, but they get scared because like all of a sudden their body's feeling different, mm-hmm. And wow, you're in control now. Not that medicine, not your doctor, not anybody else but you. And sometimes it empowers people, but sometimes it scares people away. What we're seeing is like, people are going to be, especially with I think now there are a few trends that I'm looking at. It's like, people are more stressed out. Mm-hmm. People also are more isolated, right? People are not in community, right? So even like you work from home some days, like this could be a lonely experience, right? Like, so how do you create community? And I feel like that's kind of my role in the yoga space, to help people connect in a way that keeps them sane. Right? They're finding like because people are not connecting, like they don't live with their families, their children are gone or whatever, that's you're finding dementia is coming like this, So how do we create community and have people allow people to connect continuously and with other people, not by texting, but by physically being and conversing. That to me is kind of what I see our role going forward in the next few years, especially,
That's fascinating because I think while so much is going online, virtual reality becoming a big thing. Yes. More and more people, depression is going high, suicide is going up, and across demographic, right? It doesn't matter what demographic you're part of. And the need for our health at so many levels, fitness, nutrition is increasingly becoming a necessity, right? It's a necessity. Yeah. Before it used to be, and DC in particular is very much like you moved here, right? Not a lot of people are native DC, right? And so in that space, having a community is really important.
It's very important. So I definitely see there's more room for us to create that. I think you're creating that here in these kind of conversations, but we're going to be doing that more in the studio space as well. Like, we want people to connect, and that's just it's actually needed for our survival.
Very exciting. Yeah. It's also even more exciting to know there are people like you, because this community and connection piece, we're increasingly losing that. And for me, one of the things I used to talk to people about women's work, the nuclear family structure in the Western world, and sort of like even in the non-Western world, like the sense of community that used to exist, we're also even losing them, because the Western model has always been the model that people must aspire to. And how do we begin to create these small communities, micro communities? And I think increasingly across the United States, there is this kind of like need, because our very existence requires that we connect to other human beings, not just to the machines, like, connection. Like you, I love technology. I don't have a TV, not because I don't like TV, because like I need to make time to watch TV, and like I'm always losing my phone, not because I don't love my phone, because my mind works at speed that I can't even control. So just to move through life, to be able to sort of like contain that. And I think as we increasingly outsource personal decision, the need for us to come back to self is going to be the luxury. And we can't make that the luxury. It's going to be like people who have money, who can afford it, right? And so the need for us to sort of stay in that space to create inclusive fitness.
Definitely. We're going to, because it's going to become a matter of survival.
Yes.
Your food supply is being tainted. Your water supply is being tainted. Everything is being tainted. So you're going to have to, it's a matter of survival. And I imagine that we're going to be poised to accept even more people as we go along, because people are going to be looking for not the traditional way of healing XYZ or coming back to self. They're going to be looking for kind of new ways to kind of create that connection and to heal their bodies. And I'm not just talking about physical healing either. You know what I mean? Like we're receiving so many assaults on our personhood.
Yeah.
That it's just beyond kind of just, a singular like a cancer or, any type of disease. There's many assaults on our personhood. And so, we have to protect that mentally. That's why I say, guys, you need all your faculties about you. Stop smoking that weed. It's a joke a little bit, but I just say, now is not the time to be lulled to sleep. Okay, we have to raise the vibration so that we really understand when things are going wrong, how we can respond to that, and it's not just a physical response. We have to be thinking as well. So we need all of our faculties about us in the next, in the years to come.
This is very exciting. I am so thrilled for what you are doing, because we need you, and we're going to continue to need you, and building this community where we all can get well emotionally, physically. The planet needs it. So
good. We'll be here.
Yeah, it was so exciting to have you. Thank you for coming on the show.
You've been listening to the Get Empowered podcast, fostering community through shared stories. If you enjoyed this show, please share it with your family, friends, and colleagues. And remember to go to our site and give us a 5-star rating and a great review. To share your story or join our community, visit facebook.com/inclusivus.org and find more episodes of the podcast at inclusivus.org/podcast. You can subscribe in iTunes, on Stitcher, the Google Play Music app, or anywhere you find podcasts. Thanks for listening.